Welcome back, Mando.
Oh, greetings, bucketheads. Mevar Tagar. Welcome to our 279th pitch black perpetrating episode of Mandovision. And I am your host, Nargai Tom. Thank you so much for checking out this small independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're here. Reach out to us on the socials at Mando_Vision on Twitter /X and Instagram. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, friends, I promised you a little update on some recording things that's going on, and today is the day I bring you the news. Don't worry, nothing big, but this episode that you were listening to was recorded several weeks ago, and that's just how it had to be to maintain our weekly release schedule. I have some time away, and I won't be able to record. So, as you listen to this, I will be elsewhere and far away from my laptop. So, that being said, this is just a reminder that if there's any breaking Star Wars news, new trailers, or anything like that, odds are I will not be able to comment on it for a couple weeks, unless I were to go on my phone and do like some kind of live thing or something. I don't know. I would consider that. So make sure you're following the socials just in case. You never know. But yes, that's what's going on. So if there is breaking Star Wars news, I will not be addressing it until I'm available once again to do so. Other than that, the show will move on. We will continue plugging away with our Star Wars Rebels rewatch episodes. And otherwise, I hope everyone's having a great fall. It's my favorite time of year. I love the autumn. I like getting into winter. I know, I'm crazy. But it is what it is. Oh, boy. There was a little bit of Star Wars kind of gossipy stuff in the news today. I saw a report that, once again, Ewan McGregor is out in the world talking about how he'd really like to come back and do some more Kenobi. That he believes there's a little bit more meat on that bone for Obi-Wan Kenobi Adventures before Episode 4, A New Hope. And, you know, I'm mostly okay with this idea. I pitched it previously on the podcast, and I will share it once again for anyone who maybe wasn't taking notes at the time. But I do think there is a little bit more that we can tell, that there is maybe one more story in particular that I personally would like to see. We got a taste of it in the Ahsoka series with the reunion of Ahsoka and Anakin. I would like to see a reunion with Ahsoka and Obi-Wan on Tatooine. We know that Ahsoka is around and active in this time period. We don't know exactly what she's up to in the days leading up to Episode 4, but I think it would be great to see these characters reunited, but reunited for the first time in live action with the great Ewan McGregor and Ahsoka. Like, let's make it happen. Rosario Dawson, I think, would probably be down for this as well. That's my, again, you can do whatever you want with the plot. I don't really, whatever. I'm not, they'll come up with something, and I'm sure it'll anger half the fan base and then delight the other half. So it doesn't really matter to me what the plot is on that. I just think it would be really neat to see those two characters come back together again one last time before Obi-Wan will ultimately pass in his next battle with Darth Vader. So that's kind of where I land on it. I'm always a fan of seeing more Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, so I will get behind it. I think I had mentioned previously, or several weeks ago, that I, at the beginning of the year, I think I ended up rewatching the Kenobi series, and I liked it a lot more the second time around, personally. And that's a good, and that's good. I think that speaks well of the show, that it seems to have, with like a year or so of age on it. It's like, oh yeah, and you know what? Maybe I was being a little of a nitpicky the first time around, but now I just find it entertaining and, again, delightful to see Ewan and Hayden and all these characters back. So it'd be nice to have them all kind of come back one more time for something in the real life. This time with Ahsoka in the mix. It'd be great. Bring on more of that. As far as what we're doing here today, it is Star Wars Rebels rewatch time. So let's go ahead and get these particulars out of the way. This is Star Wars Rebels Season 1, Episode 7, Out of Darkness. Written by Kevin Hops, directed by Stuart Lee. Our primary cast for this week's episode is, of course, Taylor Gray as Ezra Bridger, Vanessa Marshall as Harrison Dula, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Kanan Jarrus, Tia Sakar as Sabine Wren, Steve Blum as Zeb, Dave Filoni as Chopper, and Ashley Eckstein. What? The voice of Fulcrum. What could that mean? What could that mean indeed, my friends? Our plot for this week's episode. While on a supply run, Hera and Sabine find themselves stranded, but not alone, in a seemingly abandoned locale. And that locale would be Fort Anaxis, like the Battle of Anaxis. Initially designed for use in the abandoned Bad Batch arc that was to be in Season 6 of the show, of the Clone Wars, then resuscitated for Season 7. Anaxis is also the spot where Echo stepped up, became the hero of Anaxis in defeating Admiral Trench. So a place with some history to it. And pay attention visually to the base. You will see familiar, like signs of familiarity with Echo Base from Empire Strikes Back, like the shield generator and things like that. So a little bit of a call back, call ahead, call somebody, call a friend. Anyways, so dumb. All right, let's get into the episode. You know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here! We'll hold them off!
You're going to have to relocate the covert.
This is the way.
This is the way.
So we begin with some serious action, some aerial combat, which you all know I'm a big fan of. We have Hera, Ezra, and Sabine in the Phantom, being pursued by a gang of stormtroopers, oh my goodness, of TIE fighters. My goodness, I was way off base on that one. Woo! They're in the atmosphere of a planet. Hera uses the terrain around her as a weapon, and ultimately the Ghost will escape. During the course of the action, though, we find out they were, before the episode picks up, taking out an Imperial convoy. But we don't really know what the convoy was, and that's sort of what gets Sabine going here. The fact that the intelligence they're getting from their source, known as Fulcrum, is on, as Hera says, a need-to-know basis. And Sabine lets us know that she needs to know. And this is sort of our entry point for getting to know a little bit more about Sabine. You know, I think a lot of us are wondering, why is there this random Mandalorian hanging out with the ghost of the crew of the Ghost? And what's the deal? Brightly colored, all the paint, all the things. What's kind of Sabine's backstory here? And while we don't get anything explicit this time around, we do find out a lot of information about Sabine in this episode that starts to help paint the picture. The way it is, friends. So we know that Sabine is an Imperial cadet, that at some point she believes herself to be getting manipulated, being kept in the dark, and having bad things be a result of her actions because she's not in the loop. And this leads to massive trust issues, even with the crew, her friends, her adopted surrogate family. Still has to know what's going on. And that is what sort of starts this episode here, as they sort of balance the idea of Sabine's wanting to know and need to know with the idea that she has to be able to trust her friends, that they're not taking advantage, that they're not manipulating her in some way. So it's about having a little bit of faith in the people around you and what they're doing together. It's not about her not being important enough to know. It's about, as Hera says, it's about safety, being sure that if she were to be captured by Imperials, she couldn't reveal who Fulcrum is. Things like that. And again, I suppose that is a personal issue for many, many people on how they feel about trust and, the needing to know of every little thing. I definitely had a period in my life where I wanted to know everything that was going on around me, and then I ultimately decided that it was better when I don't. So I enjoy having my head in the sand. I enjoy being in the dark. It just keeps things simple, and I like that. I like simple. That's me, friends. Simple Tom. That's what they call me. With a slightly better haircut. Um, of course, during the escape from the Imperials, the Phantom is damaged. There's some little damage on the underbelly of it, including some damage to the fuel line. Now, this should be easy enough to fix, right? Hera knows that there's something wrong with the ship. It's her ship. She tells us all about it in this episode. And it's going to be tasked to Ezra, Chopper, and Zeb to diagnose, assess, and repair the Phantom. Except Chopper, being the instigator that he is, gets all three of them mad at each other, annoyed with each other, distracted from the task at hand, and they do not complete said diagnostics. As we find out later in the episode, Zeb started the diagnostic, but he didn't read the diagnostic. So, once Hera and Sabine leave on their mission, this supply run initiated by Fulcrum, that Sabine has insisted she get to go on because she needs to know who Fulcrum is and if Fulcrum is a person that she should be putting her trust into. Which, again, the real point is she doesn't have to worry about trusting Fulcrum because she's supposed to be able to trust Hera. But again, they go on this mission. They're stranded because of the fuel line that doesn't get repaired. Zeb, Chopper, and Ezra, once again, getting sidetracked with their antics and shenanigans. And this puts us at Fort Anaxis, where we find creatures who live in the shadows. They don't like the sunlight, so they stay in the shadows, but they're very, very vicious. They have like those soft rounded edges, kind of like lethal cats in a sense. Like there's something kind of like nice about them, but they're obviously very nocturnal and very vicious. And they are sort of unrelenting. Like there's just a lot of them. Hence my sort of pitch black reference at the beginning of the episode. A lot going on here, but it's a good episode, right? It's an episode that, again, we get some background on Sabine. We get some background on what the things that have sort of maybe affected her and shaped her into the person she is right now, and the realization that it's okay to trust others again even after you've been burned. Trusting others is still a good thing, especially when it's people that have earned your trust over time, like Hera and the Kanan and the rest of the crew of the Ghost has. So that's basically this episode. I'm trying to think if there's anything more I want to get into with you guys, because I feel like that's one of my shortest recaps of an episode ever. I really enjoyed the background on to Sabine, the hints at it. It's, again, not super overt. We don't know exactly what the inciting incident was that kind of propels her into being a rebel. Because, again, it seems like she willingly went into the Imperial Academy at one point, believing that was a good place for her to be. But something happened. We don't know what that is yet. But we know that her trust was taken advantage of. And that drives her. That is a big motivating factor for Sabine and how she is. And this is an episode where it's like, again, that's cool. That's one situation. Everyone else around you has earned your trust and your respect and your faith. And this episode helps kind of set that in place. I love the dynamic between Sabine and Hera. I think it's a lot of fun. I think these two characters have a great mother-daughter, and it might even be more of a sibling kind of relationship, in all honestness. Again, I don't know, because we do meet Sabine's mother at some point, so I hate to say that Hera's sort of like a surrogate stand-in mother, but she kind of sort of is, right? In this family dynamic that they've constructed for Rebels, Hera is clearly the mother archetype. So maybe I'll backtrack on that a little bit and just stand by it, all right? So, again, I like the dynamic of these characters. I like that we're still getting to know these characters. Sabine was one of the last for us to get to know more about. Hera is still somewhat of a mystery as well at this point. We know she's a great pilot. We know that she's in contact with Fulcrum. We know that she has a skin in the game against the Empire, but most Twi'leks do. So that stands to reason as well. Kanan, not a strong part of this episode, but again, his sense of urgency of getting to Fort and access to help Hera and Sabine is definitely paramount. I did like Ezra and Chopper and Zeb. I think their comedic antics are very, very enjoyable. And Zeb's sort of embarrassment over getting wrapped up in all that stuff instead of taking care of what he's supposed to take care of. It's so easy to push Zeb's buttons and get him off track. So again, it's a straightforward episode. It's another episode that got some knocks for being quote unquote filler, but I disagree. I disagree heavily. I think it's a good character exploration with this one. Again, the hints at Sabine, the dynamic between Hera and Sabine, and again, now we get teased on Fulcrum, a little bit more teased on Fulcrum. I saw some stuff online that seemed to indicate that you can. It's like sort of the first clue that Fulcrum is Ahsoka because there's some markings on the green crate that would be similar to Ahsoka's facial markings. I didn't notice it as well. I don't know if I just missed it or was looking in the wrong place. So I may have to go back and watch that sequence again. But online, they do seem to say that this is when Rebels tips its hand that Fulcrum is actually Ahsoka. We'll see. All right, Bucketheads, I think that's it. I'm going to give the episode 7.5 buckets. I like monster episodes. I like the creatures. Star Wars has always been really great with the creatures it creates. I like the idea of these nocturnal ones who can't come out in the daytime. And it's not just a photosensitivity because the lights of the ghost have no effect on them. It's pure direct sunlight. Like they're almost, yeah, I don't know what I was going to say there. I lost the train of thought. But I like the creatures. And again, I like sort of the forced bonding between Sabine and Hera. I can't say more about that than I already did. Good stuff. Again, it's about trust. It's about faith in your friends and believing that just because you've been burned by someone in the past doesn't mean it should shape your future forever. So yeah, 7.5 buckets. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. We'll be back next week as scheduled for another episode of Star Wars Rebels Rewatch. In the meantime, go be great Star Wars fans out there. If there's anything before my time away happens, I will drop an episode as quick as I can to talk about some news or trailers or whatever the heck comes out. But go out there, be great Star Wars fans. Continue to be kind and supportive of each other and your opinions and your beliefs and your hot takes on the galaxy far, far away. We'll be back next week with another exciting installment. Until then, remember, friends, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.